So if you can keep fighting fucking 50-something-year-olds
You don't think Tyson has a chance?
and making a living at it, I think that Mike Tyson has a puncher's chance against anybody. Mike's 58 years old. You know what I mean? And
Right.
I hate doing this because Mike gets mad at me every time I do this, but Mike shouldn't be fighting.
Dana White criticized the Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul fight, questioning why he should hold back on calling it ridiculous. He pointed out that Tyson, at 58, has been out of the ring for over a decade, while Paul, 28, is in his prime.
I believe that he was making the money he says he's making. Showtime Boxing wouldn't have gone out of business, and Showtime would have made sure they kept paying him.
Right.
But he's doing it. You know, what do I think of the Mike Tyson fight?
Yes.
Tyson's 58 years old. You know what I mean? Jake fought a guy who was his age and was also considered a boxer, and he lost.
Dana White didn't hold back when criticizing Jake Paul, calling out his pattern of handpicking older, retired athletes for fights that aren't what they seem. White pointed out that Paul's strategy is to make these bouts look legitimate, but in reality, they're just circus acts. The UFC boss didn't just target the fighters, he took aim at the entire spectacle, labeling it a cash grab disguised as a real fight. White made it clear that this so-called legendary matchup is nothing but smoke and mirrors, and he's calling it out for what it truly is.
Under any circumstances, a fucking almost 60-year-old man shouldn't be fighting a 27-year-old guy under any circumstances, even if it's Mike Tyson. So it's ridiculous.
Dana White couldn't believe the matchup. A 58-year-old legend versus a 28-year-old YouTuber turned boxer who cherry-picks opponents for easy wins. His disbelief was so strong, it felt like it was punching through the screen.
God, when this fight happens, Tyson will be 58 years.
I'm worried about Nick.
Under any circumstances.
Forget about being a fighting legend for a second. Mike Tyson is pushing 60, with years of wear and tear on his body. Jake Paul's idea of leveling up shouldn't involve dragging icons out of retirement just to land a few Instagram-worthy punches. Dana White didn't hold back, turning up the heat by criticizing Paul's opponent's strategy. He pointed out what everyone's been thinking, but may have been hesitant to say out loud. Jake Paul doesn't fight people he might lose to. Instead, he targets retired athletes and aging fighters who are far past their prime, making it a one-sided spectacle.
And he was getting this like rep, like, oh, they're protecting their golden goose, whatever. And I remember, it's so funny. I remember the Jan fight. I was like, oh, they're done with him. They're gonna feed him to Jan. They don't think he's got it.
Dana called out Jake Paul's actions as blatant clout chasing, pointing to his opponents, Tyron Woodley, Anderson Silva, and now Tyson, as a retirement home roll call. He emphasized that Paul's goal isn't proving himself as a legitimate boxer.
If you are the world champion, there's no questioning who the best is, because you've already run through, the baddest people in the world in your weight class.
And now I understand why you get annoyed by media, because I remember when Sean was Sugar Sean was coming up, and he was getting that there was this narrative that like he was being protected.
Dana didn't stop there, dropping a bomb about the Showtime boxing situation and taking a jab at Jake Paul's loss to Tommy Fury, adding fuel to the fire.
Tyson knocks out
my biggest problem with the Jake Paul thing is, and how this plays out, is when he actually fought somebody who was a boxer, who had the same type of record he has, who is his age,
Tommy,
and who is his size, lost.
Yeah.
Dana reminded everyone that Jake Paul loses when facing someone of his own age and skill level, emphasizing how his whole gimmick falls apart when the playing field is actually level.
These guys, Jake needs Tyson and needs all these other people, because everybody's going to tune in to hope that Mike Tyson knocks him out.
Right.
They're not tuning in because they think Jake Paul's a great fighter, and they.
Dana White's perspective cuts through the fluff, getting to the core of the issue. This fight wasn't about honoring the sport or providing fans with a legitimate contest. It was a cash grab, plain and simple. Mike Tyson's name brought the legacy, while Jake Paul brought the social media hype. Together, they turned the ring into a stage for something that barely resembled boxing. Dana wasn't about to let it slide without calling out every mismatched, money-grabbing, credibility-shredding aspect of it. After hearing his take, it's hard not to agree. Now let's talk about the actual fight night between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. a spectacle that left fans with mixed feelings. The judges scored the fight 80-72, 79-73, and 79-73 in Paul's favor. But don't let those scores fool you into thinking it was a close battle. The numbers don't lie. Paul dominated. He landed an impressive 171 punches, while Tyson managed only 87. That's a huge gap. And when you look at those numbers, it's clear who controlled the pace of the fight.
I have love for Jake too. I don't
Wait,
know. I don't know when a
Jake Paul's
fight's happening. I
fights
really
are all
don't.
the same. He fights older people that are smaller. It's all the same shit. And listen, the kid's doing his thing, but he lies about all this stuff.
The real issue wasn't just that Tyson was outboxed by a younger, faster fighter. It's that Tyson, nearly 60 years old, was up against someone who not only had a significant age advantage, but also had spent years cherry-picking easy opponents. Tyson landed fewer punches, his stamina was clearly struggling, and his body wasn't built for a fight like this. Yet, despite all the disadvantages, Tyson hung in there, and that's really the only credit he deserves. He didn't quit. However, the fallout from this fight is troubling. Many are questioning whether Tyson's legacy has been tarnished, and honestly, I get it. Tyson is one of boxing's most iconic figures, and his career should have ended on his own terms, not in some bizarre money-driven spectacle. For fans who grew up watching him reign in the ring, seeing Tyson in that state is tough to stomach. It's hard to reconcile the legend with the man who fought in this circus-like event.
Gets forward, lands a beautiful jab that rocks Jake, and I think immediately that made Jake realize that he couldn't be reckless against him. But then as time went on, he realized that that threat was not as present as he might have thought.
Fans want to remember the prime Mike Tyson, the one who knocked out opponents with devastating power, not the man struggling to keep up with a younger fighter. For longtime boxing fans, this fight feels like a cash grab, and honestly, it's a slap in the face to the sport's rich history. It's tough to accept.
If I brought up fucking Jake Paul,
Yeah.
pretty much everybody in the room and the other room wants to see Jake Paul get knocked out. So you're hoping, you got the reason why you hope Tyson would pull this off, or
Did you help set that up? Because I know you're close with Tyson.
God.
The audience's reactions were all over the place. Some were entertained, while others were outraged. But nearly everyone had an opinion. On one side, you had people tuning in for the drama, eager to watch Jake Paul, and honestly, that's all it was to them. On the other side were fans disgusted by what they saw. They believed the fight disrespected the sport. They didn't tune in for drama. They wanted a real contest, and what they got was far from that. To these fans, Tyson's participation in the fight was a tragic fall from grace, while Jake Paul seemed nothing more than an opportunistic celebrity, looking to inflate his ego and bank account. Was it worth risking Tyson's health for this? Absolutely not. This fight wasn't about sportsmanship, skill, or legacy. It was about spectacle. And it's a shame that the sport was reduced to that for the sake of money and attention.
Are 8 2-minute rounds, not 3-minute rounds, 2-minute rounds, and 14-ounce gloves, not 10-ounce gloves. Normally pro fights are 10-ounce gloves and no headgear, which is normal for, a pro fight. Here's my question. How do you call it a professional fight if the rules you're using are not professional rules?
Tyson's career deserves more respect than being used as a pawn in a circus act. Let's be honest. Jake Paul didn't need to fight a legend to make a name for himself. He could have faced someone his own age who's still active in the sport.
These guys, Jake needs Tyson and needs all these other people, because everybody's going to tune in to hope that Mike Tyson knocks him out.
Right.
They're not tuning in because they think Jake Paul's a great fighter and they want to.
But no, Jake Paul took the easy route, targeting a man clearly past his prime and struggling with health issues. That's not bravery, it's exploitation. Tyson's name carries weight, and Paul knew using him would generate the kind of buzz he couldn't get from fighting a real competitor. As for Dana White's long-standing feud with Jake Paul, White's been calling Paul a novelty act for years. Honestly, it's hard to disagree with him. Paul's whole approach to boxing feels more like a sideshow than a legitimate career.
I'm surprised that Jake Paul is doing this. He's on the way to building a legitimate boxing career, regardless of what anyone else thinks. He's having real fights. To now step down to do this kind of exhibition style fight against 50-something-year-old man. I just don't get the motivation from from Jake's
Jake Paul's entire career has been built on picking easy fights, and his match with Tyson was just another example.
perspective.
Well, I do. Jake, I mean, part of it is what it's been from the beginning. You know, he's been obviously very upfront about it. He's in the money-making business. That's, you know,
I don't think he needs the money. How much money do you need? He said makes like tens of millions a year.
Is there ever enough money, really? I mean, you've been in the finance.
For me, there is.
You are in the financial business before you got into this.
There's a level where you don't need any more, and it's not very much.
No, I agree. There are things more important than just, you know, just money.
Jake Paul isn't out there fighting the best. He's cherry-picking his opponents, choosing people he knows he can beat. And when he faces a real challenge, like Tommy Fury, he falls short. Dana White is right to call him out on this. If Paul truly wants to be taken seriously as a boxer, he needs to step up and fight someone who actually poses a challenge. The aftermath of Tyson versus Paul raises serious questions about the future of boxing. Will more legends be dragged into the influencer boxing circus? Fighters and promoters alike are already questioning the integrity of the sport, and streaming platforms like Netflix are fueling the spectacle rather than preserving boxing's tradition. For boxing to regain credibility, it needs to return to its roots and focus on real competition, not gimmicks. If the sport doesn't course correct soon, it risks losing its respect and authenticity in favor of quick profits and viral moments, ultimately tarnishing the legacies of both the fighters and the sport itself.